ሀገሬ ናፍቆት
Need is more attention because what's taking place around us, even though we are lucky to live like Washington State, and still we have more to do, and there is nothing for granted. Actually, this is a time that we need to engage our civic duty, and this is one of those things. I hope we're going to continue to do so. Without any further ado, I would like to introduce. My name is Barakat Kiros. I'm the chair for South Coalition of Immigrant, Refugee, and Communities of Color. And then I'm going to pass the rest for our beautiful lady, Los.
Thank you, Barakat. Good afternoon, everyone. So my name is Lois Martin. I'm a member of the Central Area Neighborhood District Council and the coalition of, okay, sorry, forgive me. I have so many acronyms that I need to share with you. So the Coalition of Immigrants, Refugees, and Communities of Color. We want to welcome you to our candidate forum this afternoon. We are very pleased to be able to start out with our King County Executive candidates, and then we'll move on to District 2, and then our final, which will be Eddie Lynn and Adonis Duckworth, and then our final person who will be coming is Erica Evans from the city attorney race. So Clarence will go through, he'll give you a little bit more history about that, and I'll introduce our moderator shortly. But first I want to thank our organizations that are here and ask that their teams please stand up. So we'll start with CERC. So all CERC members, if you could stand up, please. Thank you very much for helping host this. And then our Voices of Community Activists and Leaders Washington, the Vocal Washington team. And then probably our largest group represented here, the Urban League of Metropolitan Seattle. Please stand up. And then the NAACP of Alaska, Oregon, and Washington. I'm a proud NAACP cardholder here. Freedom Project. Thank you. African American Leadership Forum. Thank you. I know our fearless leader, Dawn Bennett, was here. She had to leave for another engagement. And then last but certainly not least, the Washington African Leadership Association. And WAMA, also, the Washington African Media Association. So thank you very much. They are actually live streaming this event today, so we appreciate you doing that. And now, without further ado, I want to introduce you to our moderator tonight. Clarence Gunn has been active in local politics for really, I'll say a number of years instead of decades. Clarence is actively involved in the Democratic Party, and he is also the fearless leader of Democrats for Diversity and Inclusion. So I'd like to welcome Clarence, and he'll take it over from here. Thank you, Clarence.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for coming. I'm hoping there are more people coming. We sent out tons of flyers, we walked the streets and knocked on doors and whatever. So more people should be coming. We're going to ask the people that are sitting at the tables to find a seat out here in the audience, because that's where the speakers will be, focusing their attention. So as you finish your plates, you can find a seat in the area. Today's candidate forum, well, let me start at the beginning. My name is Clarence Gunn, former school teacher, union organizer, and now active in the Democratic Party, as Lois mentioned, and doing a lot of work with the Coalition of Immigrants, Refugees, and Communities of Color, and fortunate enough to connect with just a variety of different community groups and organizations. As you know, okay, we don't need that. I'm sorry. It's a fluid operation, so thanks for working with people. And they were able to find 5 young people now. Tanika's the leader of the crew. So, and so there's 5 of them. They'll be asking the questions. They've been rehearsing for the last 30 minutes. And they got the sequence in order down and who does what and whatever. So it's going to be interesting. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to them and let them introduce themselves, and then I will take it back and we'll introduce our first candidate.
I'm the Chief of Operations at Freedom Project, and we are so happy that you all are here. And I will pass it to Nick.
How you guys doing, everybody? My name's Nick. I'm one of the community outreach folks at the Urban League. Stand up. Oh. But yeah, thank you for everybody for being here.
Hi, my name's Amia Williams. I am a youth leader at Freedom Project. I'm 17 years old, and I'm happy for everyone who came. Hello, everyone. I'm Harmony White. I am a youth leader at Freedom Project. I am 16 years old, and thank you all for coming today.
Hey everybody, my name is Erin Wiggins. I'm 16 years old, and I'm a youth leader at Freedom Project.
Thank you to the sponsors, so nice to meet the new sponsors, for having this forum and giving me an opportunity to introduce myself and to talk to you today. We have reached the point in the campaign where it's hard to get any meals, so thank you for lunch. That was really, really helpful. If it's okay, I'm going to remain seated. If you want me to stand up, somebody wave. I can stand up if that's easier. All right, thank you. Super. I'm running for King County Executive because local government is so important to making life better. When we do our job well, people have what they need. They have what they need to succeed. We have clean water, we have clean air, we have a transit system that works, we have affordable housing. And I believe that I am the candidate most qualified to deliver these things for all of our communities because I've done a lot of it already in my career. I am a former mayor. I was the mayor of the second largest city in this county. I am a former department director. I have run a large department at King County, and I have delivered change everywhere I've gone, and I hope we get to talk about transit. I'm very proud of expanding the light rail system throughout King County. I have helped to expand housing affordability and shelter capacity throughout King County. And I have worked to increase access to opportunity and education, and that's what I would do more of throughout all of King County as your next executive. Thank you. Thank you.
The King County Executive oversees 17,000 employees in essential services such as public health, policing, and jail services. How will you lead to ensure that everyday residents are served and have a say, not just lobbyists, donors, or insiders?
I started out, I didn't start out wanting to be an elected official or running for office. I started out as a neighbor in my community advocating to save our grocery store, to provide more housing, to provide bigger homes because our community had very small homes and there were families that needed larger homes, especially people who had immigrated from other places. And I've tried to always keep that ethic that whether it's my neighborhood, an entire city, or this big county of 2.3 million people, we serve every community and every person in this county. And therefore we need to be accessible to the voters. One of the things I did when I became the mayor of the city of Bellevue, I started a Saturday morning coffee. Just one of the ways I tried to keep in touch with the people that I serve so that I would always be available face to face. If you wanted to meet your mayor, you could come and see me, and many, many people have done that over the years. One of the things as you get into higher office that is easy to lose is that personal connection with the voters and the residents. I would commit to spend my time as county executive out in the community, meeting with groups. At 2.3 million people, I probably am not going to have coffee with every single person, but I absolutely will spend my days, my weekends, my nights being accessible to the people we serve, because that's the only way to learn what people need and provide it. Thank you.
population and competing needs across cities and unincorporated areas. How would you balance funding between Seattle and South King County while ensuring equity across the region?
Appropriate levels of services and infrastructure for unincorporated King County. We have unincorporated urban areas, especially here south of Seattle and to South King County, that do not receive the level of investment that a city like Seattle does, that a city like Bellevue or Auburn does. And we don't have an easy solution because there's no funding stream. As county executive, my commitment would be we have got to figure out whether it's going back to looking at annexing, which is taking those unincorporated areas and making them part of the city that can afford more services, or whether it's the county going to the state and finding a way to increase our funding so that we invest appropriately in these areas. It is unacceptable to continue underinvesting for years, where your sidewalks, your roads, the pipes under the streets, they're starting to cause a problem if the county can't and doesn't invest. And it's not just about infrastructure, it's also about services. How do we get people to have human services, community services? I'm a big fan of our community budgeting, our public budgeting process, and we should continue to do that because the things that the community invests in are ways to lift up community independently. And I really would continue that as executive, that we make sure that we ask the communities, where do you want to put the funding that we have for you? Can I just interject and say, it's really hard to answer some of these questions in 90 seconds. I'm doing my very best. These are big questions. Thank you.
You're doing great.
Thank you.
How will you ensure DEI commitments are embedded across all King County departments,
Yeah.
especially in public health, housing, and transportation?
I was so fortunate to start working at King County as a line staff member when Ron Sims was county executive, and I learned a lot working in the Sims administration. He started King County on our anti-racist journey by doing the first ever public health study of outcomes based on race and place. And we were famous for this years ago, that the King County had done this study and found in a social sciences data-based way, what your gut would tell you was true, that every single element of life, birth, health, economic prosperity, educational attainment, all the way through lifespan, is predictable by race and place. People have worse outcomes when they live in certain zip codes, and they have worse outcomes when they are people of color, and especially Black people and Pacific Islanders. So that started the county on our DEI journey, and I am proud to have taken up parts of it myself. As the county chair of the county council during COVID, I started our DEI program. As the president of the Puget Sound Regional Council, I started their DEI program, which created seats at the table and advisory bodies. It's a start, but we have to do more. We have to continue bringing people in, embedding lived experience in the government where the decisions are made, so that we continue to serve people and be knowledgeable and change those trajectories. I will, by the way, all the pushback we're getting from the federal government, we should never, ever sacrifice our values because people are telling us to. We have to continue to stand up for what is right.
Home to large immigrants and refugee populations. How will you strengthen protections against ICE raids and expand access to community services for undocumented and mixed status families?
And that work with immigrants in our community and from immigrant residents themselves. There's a lot of fear. There's a lot of concern that we're going to start to see much more ICE presence, that we're going to see raids from people who are shockingly completely unidentified, covering their faces, not wearing patches. I mean, if I were to be pulled up by a guy in camo and with a balaclava over his face and thrown in the van, I would assume I was being kidnapped. I mean, they don't even look like law enforcement. So what we can do is first of all, we have funding. We can support community-based groups and groups that are working with immigrant communities like the Washington Immigrant Solidarity Network to make sure people know their rights. To make sure people know that you are safe in King County government facilities. We are not ICE, and we will not cooperate with ICE. When I worked for the county jail system, I was part of changing the rules where we said we will not hold people in our jails for ICE. They used to ask us to do that. They don't ask us anymore because we won't do it. However, we're not going to be able to protect everybody, and the safest thing to do is to make sure that services are being provided by community-based organizations where there's not a lot of government presence and therefore not a hook for ICE to come in. So if we help fund community-based partners like in my district, Centro Cultural Americano, they can be trusted, they are not infiltrated, and they won't be subject to public disclosure and public reporting, and help people get services and be not afraid to come ask for help. There's a lot there, but we're going to have to do a lot more in the coming days.
How will you work with nonprofit developers to expand the needed types of family housing supplies while preventing displacement in Central and South Seattle?
You see there's a train on it. And that's because one of the things I have wanted to do the most in my career as a public servant is to expand our transit access. It is so important. Last night, actually, I was out on a ride with some of our transit operators. On the A line, we went from the Tukwila station down to Federal Way. Those trains are packed with working people in the middle of the night. People going home from work, and they rely on our transit system. So it's so important that we do both things. Finish the system, provide great, reliable service, affordable service, and around those light rail and bus stations, make sure we are using the undeveloped property to become affordable housing so people can have places to live right near where they have access to great transit. It's been proven that that helps to raise people's economic status, access to good transportation. So I'm proud to have helped to start the program where we're using unused surplus property from Sound Transit to create more affordable housing. Using unused property is an anti-displacement strategy, but we also have to be smart that when we put in development and when we put a dot on a map and start to build a station, that drives up the housing costs all around the area. So we need to work with communities to make sure that we are investing in anti-displacement strategies so people don't get pushed out as their property values go up. And we have some plans, I will point you to them, but definitely working with community and with the city of Seattle to make sure that we are being mindful that when we make an investment, we are not having the unintended consequence of pushing people out.
What power does the King County Executive have to pursue reducing pollution burdens in Central, South Seattle, and unincorporated South King County while advancing climate goals?
Thank you for that question. I'm really proud of it comparatively. This is a global problem. What can we do? And we didn't get comfortable with that. We have created a plan. We have been very active in planting trees. Planting trees is just one example of a way that you can improve air quality and mitigate climate and create green, livable spaces and keep from having heat islands. So we need to do more of that in the places most impacted, but there's a whole list of things. I will say what the next county executive needs to be thinking about is water and water quality. There's going to be so much more water flowing on our streets, in our wastewater treatment system. We are going to need to make billions of dollars in investments, and we need to make them in the places that will be the most impacted, which are these frontline communities. If you think about the amount of water that will flow on the streets into the Sound, bringing pollution with it into the waterways, through the communities, it is 10 times what we put through our entire sewer system, 10 times. And it is full of pollutants from cars, from tire dust, from oil, and it is poisoning the water. We are going to have to figure out a path to address stormwater that we do not have today, and that will take a lot of planning, but that is going to be one of my top priorities if I get to be county executive.
In 2020, how will you connect climate action, health equity, and anti-racism in your leadership? And I'm adding a little to this right now because a lot of people, get into these positions and they run for, anti-racism policies, and then they get in a position and they don't look up to, what they say they're going to look
a very fair question. And so you're asking, how do you know that whoever gets elected will continue to make this a priority, not just on the campaign trail? Super fair question. I obviously come from a community that is one of the wealthier communities. I myself am not a wealthy person. I come from a family of public servants. My mom's an elementary school teacher. My one and only sibling's a firefighter, and I am a public servant. However, we come from a place of great privilege and wealth that does not have the same impacts and the same needs as other parts of King County. I have made it my mission as a longtime public servant to try to uplift the communities that have been underserved and overlooked. Many of the ways I have done that include trying to make sure that we build into county government people with lived experience and knowledge and expertise to help keep us honest on these questions. I have tried and worked hard to make sure that when the government puts money out into the world, through services, through contracts, we have billions of dollars in construction contracts. That money needs to go to local businesses and help them to grow so that the prosperity is spread around. Our tax dollars should support our communities. I did not get to answer your whole question, but I will say, I think the key is going to be to have people in my administration who keep this a priority all day, every day, and keep the executive honest.
Gun violence has impacted our community tremendously. If in office, how do you plan on supporting community members, organizations impacted by gun violence?
It's really very troubling how much gunfire there is and how many people and families are impacted by it. We have a map on our website that you can look at that shows, it's called Shots Fired. Not my name, but that's what it's called. And you can see every quarter, everywhere we know that there has been a gunshot of any kind. And there's too many of them, everywhere, too many. We have been working with community organizations that help to try to break this cycle, violence interrupters. There's a wonderful program at Harborview, which is our county hospital, that actually works with victims of gun violence when they come into the hospital, partially because there's a cycle, right? Somebody's gotten shot at, and that can set off a cycle of shooting back later on. So that is a moment to help people both with the trauma of what they've been through and to break the cycle. These kinds of investments, these kinds of approaches are shown to work, and we need to continue funding them. Thank you. And we have not done enough for victims of violence, and we should not assume that every victim or survivor is a potential offender. Most victims or survivors are just that, and we do almost nothing for them. We invest very, very little in that. 14% of the funding that goes into this kind of service goes towards survivors. I want to increase that. I want to make sure we help people who have been traumatized. We do almost nothing for them. You know what you get? If you're in our criminal justice system as a victim, a subpoena to testify. And what we need to do is we need to help people with what they're going through and to move on past it.
Opioid and fentanyl overdoses are devastating King County and disproportionately impacting Black and brown youth. Expand culturally specific treatment and harm reduction services and ensure equitable county-wide access, especially for Black and LGBTQ residents.
There's actually been some good news and some very bad news on this front. The good news is that the treatments and the methods that public health and our community and human services people have been using are starting to show results. Using Norcan, buprenorphine, treatment modalities are actually starting to change the direction of the numbers we have seen. And that's really good news. We're not where we need to be. We need to make a lot more investment, and we need to obviously work with community-based partners who will help, who are culturally competent and to pay for treatment that's available. The very bad news is that, again, the federal government is making a point of saying that we should not be doing harm reduction, that harm reduction is somehow wrong, that we should instead be locking people up, involuntarily committing people more, And this is not the way to fix the problem. This is not the way to fix the problem. The revolving door is real. If I pick somebody up off the streets as a police officer and put them in jail, they're going to come back out, they're going to be zero permanent supportive housing, which is the kind of intervention that really works for people who need supports to stay stable in housing. And everywhere, including East King County, people in homelessness, people in addiction, people with these kinds of needs are disproportionately people of color. That is just the fact of systemic racism. And so I was very proud to work with my fellow cities on the east side to create the first ever suite, homeless shelters, permanent supportive housing with treatment and supports, and attach that to affordable housing so if people do stabilize and become independent, they've got an apartment they can rent just like a regular apartment that they can afford. We got to scale this. We've got to take these approaches and we've got to move them across all of King County. And that requires funding. We have some funding sources that we are currently talking about. Mental illness and drug dependency levy just got passed for 9 more years. We don't yet have a plan for what we're going to do with that money. We should prioritize it where the biggest needs are, like the ones that you are talking about.
Given the rise in reports of hate crimes against LGBTQ people, religious organizations, and immigrant communities, what role should the county executive play in prevention, prosecution, and survivor support?
Thank you for that question. So there's a number of things we should do. I'm going to use one key example. During COVID, when there was a rise in anti-Asian hate, we are now seeing rises in all the kinds of anti-immigrant, anti-LGBTQ plus, we created something called the Coalition Against Hate and Bias. And this was a group of people from organizations that supported a variety of different groups. They were very representative of racial diversity, citizenship, status, religious groups, etc. And what we found was the thing that we love to go to is a simple solution that somebody can just say, look what I did, and put a little star on their lapel. So I had a colleague, not running for this office, who was proposing let's do a hotline. Well, we know that hotlines are good, but also that they don't make a big difference because most people are just not, especially if they feel attacked and like somebody's coming after them, they're not going to pick up a phone and talk to some stranger and say, come help me. People will work with trusted community partners. So when the Coalition Against Hate and Bias went out and they surveyed people in communities across King County and asked, what do you need? We got answers. People told us what they needed. It's more expensive than a hotline, but it's more effective than a hotline. So I, as executive, would want to re-engage with the Coalition Against Hate and Bias with communities who are representative of folks who feel attacked, and then fund the things that they most need to get responses.
My apologies. If you're elected into this position, which current policies will you support and strengthen, and what type of innovative policies will you implement in the future?
I think the policy I would most like to change, or the thing I would most like to succeed at, is I would love to start to turn the tide and get more people off the streets and into housing. By the time I am done being a public servant, I want to have made a difference in homelessness. Because I think if we can help people whose economic, health, and social circumstances cause them to be suffering on the streets of King County, if we can get those people indoors, treated, stable, and on a good path, I think that will translate into helping all of our people. I think that will mean that we are a more caring, more equitable community, and that we will therefore have been succeeding in representing people better, because that is just the hardest to serve microcosm of everything, in my view, that is wrong with our society. We have gotten too comfortable with people suffering on the streets, and we need to make a change. And that's what I would most want to do as the county executive.
How would you provide strong regional and county-wide leadership to work with cities that are not well aligned or not committed to ending homelessness, strengthening communities, stability, investing in deeply affordable housing, and increasing protections? I can't.
I got that. I think I got it. 10 protections probably. Bellevue. When I was elected to the city council in Bellevue, we were one of those cities that you were describing. We were one of the first to have a camping ban proposed, and that was 20 years ago. One of my first, I think it was my first ever 6-1 lonely no votes was a vote against a camping ban. And then, but obviously I failed and the camping ban went into effect. And then we were sued, and the court says you can't do that. And then we had to change our approach. And so we started building. We started building more patience and more grace with people who were living on the streets. We started building shelters. So we moved the city. We moved it to a better place and a more caring, responsive place. And since then, I have worked with virtually all of the cities of King County, all 39 of them, on making housing more available, on making affordable housing more available, on responding to these kinds of crises. People can be brought along if you work with them, if you listen. And yes, anytime we try to cite something difficult, there will be that pushback from neighbors saying, not in my backyard, but we can overcome those. I have overcome it in my time. And the best thing is when somebody who was saying, not in my backyard, comes back a year later and says, I'm volunteering at that shelter now, and it is a benefit to our community, and we need to do more of this. People can be brought along, and I think it just takes caring, listening, and patience, and I'm very, very willing to do it. Yes, I think that trees are an amazing benefit for a number of reasons. They are good for stormwater filtration, they are good for air quality, and they're good for people's health and mental well-being. They help to keep heat down when you've got all this pavement everywhere and the sun is shining. Big fan of that. Now, when people ask about trees, sometimes what they're saying is, don't build more housing. They're saying, don't cut down trees. What they mean is, don't build more housing. There's a way to do both. So I'm a big supporter of trees. We've planted over 1 million trees as a climate measure in King County. We need to do a lot more of it in a lot more places. But we can do both. I don't want trees to become the enemy of people having a place to live.
Well, we promised to get Claudia out of here by 1:15, and it's a little over. But those are some great questions put together and asked. Is it done here yet?
Election, regardless of what happens on November 4th. One of the things that I have always done, and I enjoy very, very much, is meeting with people, often young people, not always, who want to run for office. And what I want to say is I'm going to leave some of these cards here. If anybody ever wants to have a one-on-one cup of coffee after November 4th, when life gets a little less crazy, I'd love to talk to people who want to run for office and answer questions and try to help them do that, because we need to build the next generation of leaders. So I'm going to leave this somewhere, and thank you again so much for allowing me to